Recording in progress.
Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back, Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer. Let's talk about the goddesses. Namely, today I'll be talking about Venus ingressing into Virgo. That's not the chart I want. Let me just bring up another chart. Okay, so there's quite a bit to say because I will be looking at quite a few of the goddesses. Let me just grab a helper. Okay, so there's Venus in Virgo, 23rd of July, which is today for me. Northern Hemisphere, it's 22nd of July for you guys. You can see here that Hygiea, that's the goddess Hygiea, has also ingressed into Virgo. Now that is super interesting. Ceres is going to ingress into Gemini later in this month. When was the date for that? Let me just... I think it was the 31st, but I'll just double check. Yes, 31st of July, goddess Ceres ingresses into Gemini. Goddess Vesta on the 19th of July ingressed into Libra. There's Vesta there. What else is happening? Pallas Athena went retrograde on the 14th of July in Pisces. And her journey is going to be quite interesting because earlier in the year, as she first entered Pisces. Well, let me just back up. So what happened was, as you all remember, we had the Great Conjunction at the end of December 2020, Jupiter-Saturn in Aquarius. So there's Jupiter, which is now retrograde, which is going to go back into Aquarius. There's Saturn in Aquarius. So what had happened was Saturn, Jupiter, the Great Conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius, Pallas Athena had joined them. And I spoke about that at that time. It's a very interesting process that Pallas Athena is taking us through because of her retrograde cycle in Pisces. She's going over Neptune several times. And so in a few days' time, as she's going retrograde in the sign of Pisces, she's going to meet up with Neptune again while she's going retrograde. She's going to go quite far back early into Pisces, and then she's going to come back over Neptune again. And indeed, that journey is not going to complete until she finishes her journey in Pisces and goes into Aries on the 15th of February 2022. So it's pretty significant, really. And I'll explain why in a moment. I just want to kind of highlight what we're sort of going to be addressing today. And the reason I'm bringing her in is, first of all, because she started out with that great conjunction. So she's obviously a very important voice and message through this collective paradigm that we are experiencing that started, early 2020. And so what we have is when Ceres enters Gemini, which is not too far away, it's just only a few days away. Gemini is an air mutable sign, as we know. Virgo is a mutable sign as well. And of course, Pisces is a mutable sign. Libra is cardinal, but it's an air sign. So we have the goddesses really accentuating the mutable quality. Mutability is always about change that comes in sometimes in ways that we are not prepared for. Sometimes it can feel a little bit chaotic because there's no sort of consistency And I think that's definitely going to, it's already, well, it's already in play anyway with the nature of reality at the moment. But as we continue forward with Hygeia in Virgo, now remember when this whole global situation, the health global situation that started in 2020, there was a period there when goddess Hygeia was in Gemini. This was last year, and there was the just the washing of the hands, right? That was like the biggest message that was coming through, and everyone was just so incredibly paranoid, right? Wash your hands 10 times a day kind of thing. That's the message that was getting drummed into people's mind here, at least anyway, in the Southern Hemisphere, well, in Australia. But collectively, there was this issue of the hands, right? Wash your hands, so that you don't sort of, you know, um, get those germs and then pass them on, and with the virus and etc., right? So we had all that going on when Hygeia, by the way, is the goddess of health. She was the daughter of Asclepius, who's the god of medicine. So she's quite a prominent asteroid goddess, and clearly she's had a very strong role to play in this global situation. So when I see her now going into the sign of Virgo, which she just did very recently, like a couple of days ago, and there's Venus has ingressed into Virgo as well. And so this is a mutable energy. It's Earth, but it's mutable. So first of all, Earth is always pointing us to earthly matters, to matter itself. So it is really about the ideas and wishful thoughts and beliefs and all that sort of stuff, the abstract sort of world, if you like, is going to have to take a bit of a backseat, because the matters that are going to come to the forefront have very much to do with health, clearly. Virgo, Hygeia in Virgo, Venus in Virgo. And it's Virgo, I mean, first of all, Virgo's, it's a very complex sign, right? It has so many layers to it. It's one of the most complex signs in the zodiac, as I've often said. But it is Earth, and Earth does have to do with the senses of the body. So it sort of operates from, if you like, from that level of what do I need to do to get ABC done? What's the next step in this particular process or project? What is it that I need to organize and structure and do today or tomorrow? So it's very earthly focused, earthly bound, and so the consideration is always about what needs to be done, what's the work that needs to be done. One thing to always note when you're looking at the earth signs, be aware that earth is opposite water. That is the case with all the earth signs. So Virgo's opposite Pisces, Cancer's opposite Capricorn, and Scorpio's opposite Taurus. So you can see very clearly from what I just said that earth is always opposite water. So the inferior element for earth is water, meaning water is the shadow component for the earth signs, as it were. And at best, earth is incredibly stable and capable and grounded in the application of the material plane and what needs to happen, what needs to be integrated, or what needs to be done on that level. But at worst, it's at the cost of disregarding emotional needs and the world of the abstract, the world that is not necessarily tangible. Okay, so the earth always points us to the tangible material plane and what needs to happen on that level. So I think that certainly over the rest of this year anyway, even though Venus is only going to be in Virgo for the next few weeks, because Hygeia is in Virgo, we are going to see this process of the global health situation going through a lot more changes, actually, because it's a mutable sign, right? And Virgo is the archetype that corresponds to health, it is a mutable sign. Mutability means change. I'm just thinking, when does Hygiea leave Virgo? Let me just see what the date was for that. Yeah, 7th of October. So come 7th of October, she will ingress into the sign of Libra. But anyway, for the next couple of months, we're really looking at the matters of the global health situation going through a lot more changes. And it's already in play because we've seen so many changes in points of view and information from the so-called experts, health organizations that govern what happens on the global health level, what is offered, what is suggested, what is directed, and in some cases what has become mandatory. So we've seen the incredible, as I said, changes. Certainly here where I am, there's been, just a complete 180. One particular suggestion for the jab through a particular manufacturer that creates one of those liquids that gets ingested into your body was originally said, that if you're under 50, you should not be taking it. There has been deaths from it. I'm speaking very openly and honestly based on facts. These are not my perceptions. So for those of you that are in the place where you've either taken it or believe in it and believe everybody should, I respect your view, but please don't come on here and sort of start attacking me for speaking on facts. That's all I'm doing. I'm just pointing to the facts and just correlating it to the astrology. Okay. So if you were below 50, you were told not to take it. Then it changed to if you are between 40 and 50, you can take it. Then it changed from that to some other figure. Anyway, from there, we've had all these inconsistent aspects of information given to us. And the last I heard, which was just today, is that this particular same pharmaceutical liquid product is now going to be offered to 12-year-olds. So I'm quite blown away by that personally myself. But anyway, that's just a fact. I'm not really going to talk about what I think about that. It doesn't really matter. We can all decide for ourselves what we like. But I'm just pointing to just the incredible inconsistencies, of course. And I just think that we are going to see a lot more of that, particularly while Hygiea and Venus are in Virgo. There's going to be a lot more focus on it, probably a lot more changes come through. Just a lot more focus on it. Okay, so as we continue to explore this journey of Venus through Virgo, let's just go now back to Venus in Virgo. So first of all, Venus is going to transit a particular area of your chart, right? So depending on where Virgo is in your chart, now that could be anywhere. If you have Aries ascendant, then you have the natural order of the zodiac, and so therefore Virgo is in your 6th house, which is its natural position, right? But you may have Virgo in the 10th house. You may have Virgo in the 4th house. It just depends what your ascendant sign is, right? So just track where Virgo is in your birth chart, and that's where Venus is going to be transiting. Now, in traditional astrology, Venus in Virgo is in her place of detriment. So planets that are in detriment tend to be a little bit more challenged, tend to operate a little bit more differently to what they would normally operate in when they are in their place of rulership or exaltation, which is their sort of natural habitat, right? Now, Venus in Virgo, clearly her polarity is Pisces. And so she's just been through Leo, as we know, and she had that beautiful conjunction to Mars, which could have evoked enormous passion and inspiration to act on things, because fire is the element that engages and evokes will, inspiration, and action, right? Stepping into Virgo, she's really taking a big step back from the grandiose level of feeling, special, wanting to be in the limelight, wanting to express her passions, and engage in those and act on those, and experience a sense of inspiration as well. In Virgo now, it's a process of actually just taking a step back and really actually starting to assess, where is it that I need to perhaps improve a little bit more relative to my own experience in relationships. Venus is always about relationships, of course. It is about self-worth, self-value, and she always points to finances as well. So through Virgo, she has a very specific journey, but then through the house that she's actually moving through, that's kind of the area of where the focus of her journey through Virgo will be, right? So there's two levels to really, well, three levels to really understand here. First of all, Venus, the goddess of love, self-worth, self-love, values. In Virgo, it is about the internal, inner assessment and analysis of where I need to check out, where I further need to improve on myself and in my world of relationships. And in the house that she's going to be in for you, that will describe the area that plays out clearly. So obviously, whatever house she's in is going to bring in, a completely different level to what, perhaps anyway, to what Venus represents. Because if you've got Venus traveling through the ninth house, for instance, then it's clearly going to speak to matters that connect to other cultures that you are exploring or are interested in. It connects to the law as well, to court systems. It also connects to publishing books and things like that. It connects to religion, philosophy, astrology, the esoteric, we could say, wisdom, the expansion of consciousness. So, planets moving through the ninth house are not really a difficult placement, in my opinion. The ninth house is pretty amazing, actually. But anyway, the point is that Venus is in detriment. In an earth sign, Virgo, it's a feminine sign. It very much corresponds to the sensual components within as well. It also takes us into a more grounded level where we get a bit of a reality check on our relationships, how we are relating with others, and certainly how we relate to ourselves as well. But I think because of the global situation, there's just going to be so much more focus around our own health and actually which path we wish to embark on relative to the information that's given to us. And there's clearly a division in views about what to do and what not to do. And that's okay. That's we need a healthy skepticism on matters, especially that are unknown, because the suggestion around the jab is I mean, I'm no medical science expert, but it is my understanding that there has not been enough time to conduct appropriate clinical research as to what the effects of this will be ongoing. What we've seen so far is that there's been tremendous adverse reaction by many people, including death. That's just a fact. And there's a lot of debate around that. There's a lot of debate about, have more people suffered death through the actual virus, or have more people actually suffered death through the jab? And there's, that's there's a lot of debate around that. And again, this podcast is not about that debate. I'm just pointing to, what things in the heavens, the celestial bodies, what they are sort of pointing to. So yeah, we are going to go through a journey where our own matter of health and the decisions and choices that we wish to make around that will become just a huge sort of primary focus, around the next couple of months, particularly while Venus and goddess Hygiea are both in the sign of Virgo. And I think we're going to see, again, as I said earlier, just a lot of changes which will produce further inconsistency, I think. Now, Venus is going to go through quite a few different aspects in her journey of Virgo. So let me just clear those lines. Okay, so what's going to happen is, well, first of all, at the moment as we speak, she's opposite Virgo, right? She was really opposite Virgo yesterday, actually. And so, of course, what to note is with these particular transits that I'm going to just touch on very briefly, these transits are only in play for 24 hours or so. So they're not long transits, okay? They're very quick. They just come and go, and for that reason, they may or may not show something significant for you. I think Venus opposite Jupiter, for instance. Well, first of all, they're the two benefics, and there is reception here from Jupiter to Venus, because Jupiter is in Venus's exalted sign and Jupiter is in its rulership. So there is a reception here, a one-way reception, and that does actually aid Venus to a certain extent, because she's in her detriment, right? So this little moment here of time, if you like, Venus opposite Jupiter, can just be an enlarged sort of projection, if you like, of something quite grand relative to money and or relationships. And it could just be it will just be like a daily thing. There might just be something that comes up, and it could just be something as simple as you want to go and buy something really beautiful that you really love, and the Jupiter is just projected on it, and it's just this incredibly beautiful idealistic thing. It could be a piece of art, because Venus corresponds to art. It could be some type of investment. It could be any one of those sorts of things, but you are projecting the Jupiter onto the item, thing, material thing, or could be relationship, and it just kind of gets that filter of Jupiter, which may be a little bit far-fetched. So that that's the only thing to kind of be aware of. That might just be sort of over the top, and you kind of need to get back down to reality, get back down to earth, about the realness of what it is you are looking at, right? Venus in Virgo. Venus in Virgo looks at things very critically, very realistically, and very practically. That's the nature of earth. It is, and the good thing about earth signs in that way is that they can be so extremely grounded in the matter of facts, what needs to be dealt with, what the work that needs to be done. And so, earth signs are amazing at getting the job done. That's just what comes so natural to them. But as I said earlier, that the downside to earth can be, because water is their inferior element, it's their opposite element, it's their shadow element. It can be too much focus on the work, the product, the productivity, at the expense and cost of the inner realm and emotional realm and the intangible realm, which is where our intuition, feelings, visions, ideals, and dreams are born from. And the beauty of water giving birth to these dreams and visions, if you like, it needs earth to actually manifest them, to create them. So you see, there is no inherent good or bad, negative or positive. Everything is balanced out, or in nature it is, at least. But within human beings, there are many of these archetypes or elements or components that can be quite imbalanced, and hence the various journeys that we go through that actually enable us to grow and to get a better perspective and to balance things out. So Venus in Virgo, speaking of balance, Venus is the goddess, the principle that corresponds to balance, because she's the ruler of Libra, right? So we could say as well that we're going through a journey with Venus in Virgo, where we are balancing out our life on the level of our own well-being, or how balanced is our life on the level of health, nutrition, well-being. So there's just a real focus on our own sense of nutrition, health, well-being, which covers everything, sleep, food, exercise, just all the different components that would describe a healthy lifestyle, or a healthy human being, if you like, right? There's just going to be a lot more focus on that. And of course, because of the nature of reality, there's going to be, as I said, a lot of changes and a lot of information that's going to be given, which we will all need to decide which path we will embark on. My advice personally would be, just be sure within yourself, whichever path you take, that you are deciding for yourself, like really deciding for yourself from a very, from the most informed basis that you can be informed by. And at the moment, we are not totally informed accurately or correctly. We can't be, because there's just too many unknowns with the suggestions in play, right? So it is very tricky, because people are sort of caught in the middle of feeling pressured and coerced, and or feeling totally confused and uncertain. So there's a mixture of emotions and thoughts going on with all these sorts of critical issues in the world at the moment. So as she moves forward, she's going to, let me see. So she starts off with her conjunction to Hygeia. So that actually says to us as well that Venus's journey through Virgo is totally amplifying the Virgo signature, because she started her journey with Hygeia, the goddess of health. So that's just an important point to note. It just, think about it like, Venus going through her journey and cycle through the archetype of Virgo, but starting it off with the goddess of health. We can't not notice that. That's really significant. As she proceeds forward, after her opposition to Jupiter, she's going to form a square to the nodes. So let me just animate this chart and show you what this looks like. So if we just take it forward a few days, you can see Venus is there. She is there, right? She's just moving through, the degrees. And so by the time she gets to, there we go, 8 degrees of Virgo, which is on the 29th of July, she forms a square to the nodes, the transiting nodes, right, in Gemini and Sagittarius. And at the same time, she forms a square to Juno. And this is very important because Juno is the goddess of marriage and commitment and partnership. So it could be speaking to, because Venus corresponds to money, finances, and Juno can also correspond to business partnerships. This square from Venus to the nodes and Juno can speak to either matters in your life that correspond to business, financial deals with others, partners, or it can speak to your personal relationships, or it can be speaking to both. Now, the square, we know, is always an indication of some sense of conflict, or some sense of crisis. And whilst it's not necessarily a comfortable experience, the most positive thing about square aspects is that they produce the shift or change that's required for us, because the energy is such that you cannot act on it. You cannot just sit there and ignore it. You need to take some kind of action. That's what squares promote. They promote action. That's why they are dynamic, and that's what gets us out of our little comfort zone and evokes some kind of change or some kind of decision to do something different relative to a situation where we have been complacent or just in denial of, or just not acting on it because it's just easier to stay with it than to take action. And so that's what squares do. They produce that action that's necessary, right? So squaring the nodes, clearly that's going to speak to, well, because the nodes correspond to, on an evolutionary level relative to the transiting nodes, it's got to do with leaving behind, if you like, Sagittarius, which are our dogmatic beliefs, and integrating new knowledge, Gemini, new levels of understanding, new information, basically, the integration of that. So Venus squaring these nodes from a personal perspective and relationships, it could be speaking to the sense of conflict that one might feel internally about the certain beliefs that one has had about their relationship, about their partner, about their values, and what they've needed to let go of relative to having dogmatic beliefs about these sorts of things, and how they might integrate new ways of understanding, new information that needs to be integrated into the relationship about communication, about the shared information, about the shared knowledge, about the different ideas that you and your partner may have. And so this little moment in time where Venus squares these nodes, and Juno, of course, it's going to highlight that matter quite strongly, if indeed that has been an issue in your current relationship, right? As she moves forward, she then, forms a trine to Uranus. It's around about here, 3rd of August. 3rd of August is for the Southern Hemisphere, so for Northern Hemisphere it'll be the 2nd of August. So when you see a date on my screen, because I'm working with the Southern Hemisphere, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, just take it back a day for yourself, right? Now, trine Uranus is fine. That's just a bit of excitement, some sense of freedom, some sense of liberation, or some new excitement in a new relationship or in your current relationship, and not in a disruptive manner, because normally Uranus is quite disruptive, but in this case it's a trine, so it comes in a fluid sort of manner. Okay, so that just could be a day where you just have something really exciting kind of happen relative to things you love or your partner or relationships. It's, you know, it's not a big deal sort of thing. It's not a difficult thing, that's for sure, but it can be a really uplifting sort of thing. You know, it can produce that sort of little spark that you might need to kind of get the wheels into motion in certain ways, right? I'm sure you can all use your imagination there. Okay, so then as Venus proceeds forward, she's going to form her opposition to Neptune. That's on the 10th of August. So this one I see as more significant than the trine to Uranus. Not, well, I don't know if it's more significant, but perhaps more pronounced. Be a better way to explain that. Oppositions are always it's quite an intense sort of energy, because what happens is there's a polarization, right? So we would be the Venus as individuals, and we would project that Neptune, for instance. Now, that can be a totally blissed out couple of days of romance, for instance. That can be a beautiful spiritual encounter with another person. That can be a beautiful spiritual experience with, it could be like, even, you know, you're reading a book, you know, you are just engaging with someone, talking to somebody, and there's just this incredible sort of spiritual connection, as it were, in terms of how it feels. It can be any of those beautiful Neptunian Piscean components, right, which take us into the transcendental, take us out of the material plane and enable us to be open and connected to source, spirit, transcendental components, material experiences, blissful experiences that can bring a sense of connection on those levels, which can be quite intoxicating. It's like taking drugs without taking drugs. But the danger, of course, always with oppositions, and certainly with Neptune, is the projection of an illusion. So, you know, projecting the Neptune onto someone and seeing them as the god or the goddess, or, you know, the source to everything that you need spiritually, and being totally misguided about that, because you've that person can't live up to that. You've just projected this fantasy onto them, as it were. So, you know, I see that as it can be bittersweet. It just depends how it plays out, you know. But again, that's only going to be there for about a day. So it's, you know, it's not going to be crisis, as it were, but it is just something to note and be aware of. Could be a day where you just receive, you know, a beautiful gift, or flowers, or, you know, art, or, you know, it could be any of those things. A poem, you know, romanced off your feet, you know, it could be any of those things. And finally, as Venus then continues to proceed forward in Virgo, she's going to finish her journey in Virgo with her last aspect, excluding asteroids. Her last aspect is to Pluto. She's trine to Pluto. And I quite like this, actually, as her last aspect, because whatever she has meant for us in her journey in Virgo, in the house that she's in, the aspects that she's made along the way, I think the more difficult, challenging ones are the square to the nodes, the opposition to Neptune. She then makes a trine to Pluto, which kind of says to us, okay, we're completing our journey with the goddess in Virgo, which has led us to a further level of inner self-analysis, self-improvement on our, on ourselves, so that our relationships too can improve. The adjustments that we may have had to make as well, because Virgo is always about adjustments. Virgo is in conjunct to Aries. So in other words, the sixth house is in conjunct to the first house. So the Virgo archetype inherently holds that quality of what's the word? Adjustment. We're always needing to. That's why anything to do with Virgo is the journey of self-improvement comes through what is it that we need to work on and adjust so that we can achieve the level of self-improvement that we are seeking. So Venus forming a trine to Pluto as her last aspect before she completes her journey in Virgo can really aid us and assist us with the perhaps what we might call an ease of transformation that can come through relative to the work that we have done while Venus has been in Virgo. So the final aspect is the integration of all the work that we've done and how we can really bring that all together now and see some kind of transformation that we can achieve and accomplish or have achieved relative to the work that we have done on ourselves. And of course, that includes the work that we have done around our health. And, just a point on that as well. I mean, for instance, we are in, as I've said, we are in lockdown number 5 here, and I'm a gym person, right? I'm a yoga person, I'm a gym person, and I haven't been able to go to the gym for a very long time again, and that's that's quite problematic for me. But anyway, I've had to kind of work with that. The point is that millions of people are in this situation. And, given that, for instance, we are in peak winter here and it's freezing, there's no sun, it's it's really just like Groundhog Day. It really is. It's incredibly challenging to maintain a level of inspiration, when you just take one look out that window and see that everything is closed, everyone's in lockdown, it's freezing cold. I'm not a person who likes to go out for a jog necessarily. I like to walk out in nature, but it has to be, at least 18 degrees or 17 degrees. I don't like to go out when it's 10 degrees and it's raining, for instance. So, all these little challenges we're all faced with, and they might sound insignificant or trivial, but they're not, because they are so primary to our mental health as well, our emotional and mental health. And we're just so still restricted in so many ways. I know in the Northern Hemisphere you guys have had summer, you're still in summer, and that's great. That's, at least you've had that kind of outlet and that warmth, and to utilize that to your best capability. And this is important at a time like this, because even though, during summer, a lot of people's mind goes to, let's have fun, let's go on vacation, let's go on holidays. And a lot of people have been able to do that, in certain ways to a certain extent, but not in the exact same way that we've been able to do so previously, because we just can't deny the reality of what's there still, right? So, vitamin D is one of the most crucial vitamins in the body, actually, because vitamin D acts as a hormone. This is a fact. This is a scientific fact. You can research it if you like. So hence the power of vitamin D. Vitamin D helps on so many different levels relative to our health: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Vitamin D is the source to health, really. It really is. So it has also been shown that high doses of vitamin D are incredibly helpful for this virus, for instance. And you don't hear that, right? It's not advertised, it's not promoted, it's not marketed. Why? Because there's no money in it, because we can get vitamin D from the sun. There's business, and money is in product. And the product is going to be made to be presented in a way to basically suck the person into buying it, right? Now that happens on every spectrum. You see a nice pair of shoes, they look all shiny and glamorous and whatever, online, and then you receive them and they're just made out of crap. So we can take that level of, deceit in manufacturing to so many lengths. I had a range hood replaced in my kitchen a month ago, brand new range hood. It broke down after a week. The guy that came to have a look at it said that's the shittest, cheapest range hood that they put in there for you. And I've seen this break down heaps of times. So, on every level relative to business and money, everyone cuts corners and everyone's trying to make money and everyone rips people off. It's really ridiculous, actually. And it's been going on for a long time. It's nothing new, right? But when it comes to our freaking health, I said it freaking. When it comes to our health, that's a different matter. That's not something that anybody should be playing around with, manipulating, distorting information, uh, presenting information in a way that is supposed to be truthful when it's not, hiding and denying and removing content that would be helpful for our health, such as the power of vitamin D. I know loads of you out there know about the power of vitamin D, but there's been research conducted by actual, medical physicians and specialists in their field that have spoken about just how powerful vitamin D is in the aid of, first of all, boosting your immune system, keeping you healthy, right, and aiding in eliminating perhaps the symptoms and uh, the subsequent matters that can come up if one does contract this virus. I'm not saying vitamin D is the whole answer, but it is a huge answer. And so anyway, I'm just very aware of vitamin D at the moment because I'm not getting any because there's no sun here at the moment. It's just really, really just it is what it is. But so getting back to finally Venus trine Pluto, the journey of Venus in Virgo, it is about looking into deeper material about this situation that's going on in the world and what you can do to help yourself outside of what mainstream consensus reality media Saturn tells you. Remember, Virgo has the gift of deep, 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 deep analysis, and it has the gift of critical thinking. Critical thinking. That is probably the biggest takeaway that you can take out of this podcast today, and that is that poor reasoning, critical skills are absent in so much of the world. And Venus in Virgo does actually allow us to step into that ability to have clear critical reasoning skills, to look more deeply into the data, information, suggestions, etc., that's being offered to us, so that we can actually be better informed in whichever decision we choose to make. And of course, in Virgo, quite apart from enabling us to have greater critical reasoning skills, just really examining our own health at the moment, because at the end of the day, this virus, it does exist. It's not an illusion. Okay, it's actually there. So we are all susceptible to it in some kind of way, and we may have to. Our bodies will probably just have to adjust to it. And a lot of people probably won't get it, and a lot of people will, as we know, as we can see. And so I think that it's interesting, actually, because, how are we maintaining our health, really? I mean, is it about our exterior and just looking good, trying to hide our wrinkles, or, trying to accentuate, the 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 aesthetic of the external beauty? There's that level. There's the gym junkie that is just obsessed with his biceps and his six pack. I mean, that's all. It's pretty ego based, really, isn't it, when you think about it? But I think true health, and I'm not saying I'm there. I'm always trying to integrate health to my best capability. And believe me, I've got I've got addictions, and I've got things going on as well. I'm far from perfect, so I'm always a work in progress, just like everybody else is. But one thing that I can say, at least for myself, that I've been always to maintain is exercise and healthy diet. And that to me has not been difficult, because I just naturally feel that's the way I want to live my life, really. It's not a problem for me. So anyway, because of the condition on the planet, because of the things that we are exposed to, it is up to us to take more sort of responsibility and just focus on our own health, and just look at things that we otherwise wouldn't look at so carefully, such as the whole vitamin D thing, for instance. There's so much you can do with supplements. I'm not saying supplements are the answer to everything. If you've got something really acute that requires surgery, then you need to go into hospital and go under the knife and have surgery. There's no two ways about that. But there's so many other ailments, if you like, and they can be emotional, mental, and physical, that can be addressed through just through the choices we make relative to our health. And so I really believe that Venus in Virgo and Hygiea in Virgo is just going to put the spotlight on that for us, to get some critical reasoning skills happening on, what we are doing, what we are going to do, and what we understand about all of that. Virgo is a very deep sign. It's very complex. Scorpio leaves no stone unturned. But Virgo itself, it doesn't either, in a way, because it just wants to, it is driven and motivated to, to break down and analyze every single detail and component to see and understand why this fits or why it doesn't fit, how this works or why it doesn't work. And so that's, I see that as a real positive relative to what's happening in the world. So that's Venus's journey. And also, I just remembered as well, the goddess Persephone is at 0 Sag. So when at the beginning of Venus's entry into Virgo, she's forming a square to Sag, right, which is here. And so Persephone is at 0 degrees of Sag. Okay, so that's quite interesting. I mean, Persephone is the daughter of Ceres. She was abducted by Pluto. Now, Persephone matters in relationships can often bring up matters of abduction, abuse. There's quite a few levels, actually, but it is also about regeneration and transformation and growing into our own, if you like, relative to our inner feminine. Because even though Persephone was abducted by Pluto into the underworld, and abduction means it was against her will, when she was there, she did actually end up embracing the journey because she ate the seeds to the pomegranate while she was told not to. And that just meant that she decided to, she knew what her fate was going to be after that. And she wanted to grow into her own, because think about it, when she was abducted, she was a young woman that was just attached to the hip of her mum. So she had to break away from that Cancerian bond, if you like. And she had to find her own inner feminine and womanhood. And going through womanhood and exploring femininity, has so many different dimensions that do include a number of different things psychologically, physically, and emotionally. So there is some tension there with Venus and Persephone because they're squaring each other. And so the tension is between the inner feminine of finding one's own relative to their own inner sort of developed feminine, if you like, where we make our own sort of decisions, right? So that's just another note to consider that might speak to some of you if you think about it, I suppose. Okay, so, and just lastly, with Pallas Athena conjunct Neptune, this journey of Pallas Athena and because Pallas Athena was she was the protectress of Athens, right? She's a masterful, skillful, strategic goddess. And as I've said before, because she was born from Zeus's head, Jupiter's head in mythology, right? So she's the feminine kind of counterpart of Jupiter relative to wisdom. So she does truly symbolize wisdom. And as I've said before, she symbolizes clear seeing because she aids to the removal of unhealthy projections. Now, in Pisces, it's clearly stimulating third eye, soul, inner life, spiritual visions, transcendental experiences, having visions of life and reality beyond the density of the bounds of Saturn, which rules this earth plane. So she's giving us the opportunity to have some clear, inspired vision through Pisces into another realm, if you like, because the matter is that we are the earth collectively, the earth herself, and every single soul on the earth at the moment, we are all part of this incredible, massive transition where a new reality is being born. It's so obvious that that's what's happening. So again, it comes back to we can sort of stay behind and try to remain attached to what was, which will never be again. And if we stay on that path, we're really going to struggle. Or we can find a way to connect to deeper inner wisdom, Pallas Athena, and give birth to new visions that might be completely out of our comfort zone, totally unknown, but that's the direction we're heading in. The other thing that I think Pallas Athena with Neptune highlights for us as well is definitely spiritual insights, downloads, and visions. Neptune, Pallas Athena in Pisces. There's a lot of activation that can happen with our own psychic downloads while those two are together. And there's also I guess it's really about how do we strategize a new reality? How do we strategically step into this new paradigm that's being created at the moment? This is what Pallas can help us with, because she's giving us the insight and the wisdom through our psychic centers, Pisces. If we're not working with that energy, we're not in touch with that energy, it'll mean nothing for people who have got, wherever Pallas Athena and Neptune are transiting in someone's chart, these energies are there, present. They are in total alignment with what we are experiencing, but our own attunement to them is what can give us a sense of power on a conscious level for integration, to use these energies, or to align with these energies rather, in the best possible way for ourselves, that can help us with what we are dealing with at any given moment, really, but certainly in the present moment. So, she's strategically taking us through the integration of a new reality, because the old reality has died. It's dying. It's completing. And what's Pisces about? Completion and endings. What's the next sign after Pisces? Aries. What's that? New beginnings. And Pallas Athena gets into Aries on the 15th of February. So I think we're going to see a lot of different things being presented in this paradigm moving forward from February in 2022, with the entrance of Pallas Athena into Aries. It's going to be a very different picture then. But we do need to find ways to let go of the old, integrate the new. And of course, Uranus squaring Saturn, they've still got one more aspect, I think, to do together, an exact aspect, that'll happen later this year. And so that too is just speaking into the paradigm of the conflict between letting go of old attachments, Uranus in Taurus, and the new order and structure of this world, Saturn, through the vision of Aquarius, which does come through shock and trauma and unpredictability and unexpected things, and so on and so forth. Aquarius. So that's my message about the goddesses at the moment, and Venus in Virgo. Have a think about that and let me know what your thoughts are, and how you feel about what you've heard and how it speaks to you. And yeah, let's see how it unfolds for the world. I will come back to talk about Vesta in Libra, because I didn't bring her into today's podcast, but I'll do a separate podcast for that, because I actually want to talk about not only Vesta in Libra, but her journey as she ingresses through the last part of the zodiac, because she's going to move fairly quickly until she gets to Pisces, and then she's going to go retrograde. And I think that's going to be a very significant cycle, because when she was in Virgo, which is the opposite sign to Pisces, she also was retrograde. So she's taking us through a very specific journey that corresponds to Virgo and Pisces, and the integration of the work around that on an inner soul level. Remember, Vesta corresponds to the inner soul work that we do. She also corresponds to investment, investments, investing, and sisters. So that's my share for today. I'll see you all very, very soon. Happy full moon in Aquarius, and much love and much blessings. Thanks for listening. Bye.